What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Frogs Up TCU Sports Podcast. This is episode 3. I am Russ Hodges. That is Anthony North. We are here to recap the TCU Colorado season opener that took place at Amon G. Carter over the weekend. A record crowd on hand for this football game. Over 53,000 in the stadium to watch the season opener. We have everything about this football game coming your way. We are here recording Sunday evening. It is Labor Day weekend. I have been having a fantastic weekend. Did our fantasy draft earlier today. It has been a fun day for me. A lot of football to watch yesterday. Anthony, how's your Labor Day weekend going?
Yeah, it's been nice. Got some time with the family today for Sunday, Monday. Then I'm off traveling for work through the week. So it's been nice having this weekend. Got to see some football. Unfortunately, didn't get the result we wanted, but it's been a good time here, and I guess ready to just talk about this game.
Thankfully, we can say that we did not have the worst Big 12 conference loss of the weekend. I think later in the week we'll have some more Big 12 scores to talk about, but we won't waste a whole lot of time here. We will spend most of this episode discussing the Colorado game, what went right for the Frogs, what went wrong, and what needs to improve going into week 2 against Nicholls State here this coming weekend. Saturday, September 9th, another home game at Amon G. Carter against the FCS opponent. Real quickly, though, we do have a few plugs here. This podcast is, of course, brought to you by our friends at Charlie Hustle Clothing Company. Charlie Hustle is a vintage-inspired clothing company based out of Kansas City that specializes in collegiate and hometown apparel. Charlie Hustle wants you to be the best dressed fan this season, so be sure to check out their website of officially licensed collegiate apparel today and show off your school spirit all season long. With over 30 schools to choose from, they've got you covered with all of your collegiate apparel needs. Shop today at charliehustle.com. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. Use the promo code TEN1215. That's TEN1215 for 15% off all non-sale items. Also, we have our Frogs a War promo code still, so if you'd like to get 15% off any TCU items, I've got my Charlie Hustle TCU shirt on right here. You could use the promo code Frogs O War for 15% off there as well. We are also partnered with Prize Picks, which is the easy way to play daily fantasy sports with a wide variety of stats to choose from: yards, touchdowns, and more. Prize Picks features mixed sport entries. If you want to make entries on NFL, NCAA, you can do so. Prize Picks offers every sport from football to basketball, baseball, college sports, and more. Download the easy-to-use Prize Picks mobile app. Make your entries in as easy as 60 seconds or less. Safe, offers fast withdrawals. Use the code FROGS12 for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Lastly, we are, of course, partnered with the 1012 Network now here at Frogs Up. If you would like to donate and support the network or support the two of us here on Frogs Up, please consider donating to the Patreon that was recently launched. Go to www.patreon.com/TEN12 Network. All right, let's waste no more time. TCU, Colorado, Deion Sanders, and the crew coming to Fort Worth yesterday as 20.5-point underdogs. This was a track meet of a football game. This was very exciting. This was very much a Big 12 kind of football game where you have a lot of offense, both teams scoring 4 touchdowns in the second half. You had over 1,100 yards of total offense. Shedeur Sanders was fantastic in this game. TCU had several receivers making big plays. Amani Bailey was fantastic. TCU finishes with over 500 yards of total offense, but ultimately it is Colorado that comes away with a big upset over the 17th ranked Horned Frogs, 45-42, the final score of this game. Some critical turnovers and a lot of penalties for TCU, the big mistakes for the Frogs in this one as they start 0-1. Anthony, when you look at everything that transpired in this game, what's your big takeaway from what you saw from Colorado, and what is the big takeaway from what you saw from TCU?
Colorado was just simply much better than certainly we expected. I think we have a lot of crow to eat here, as do probably every TCU fan and every national media outlet out there. You know, like you said, 20.5 point favorites. Nobody expected this to happen this way. And the takeaway is Colorado is really good, and TCU was not prepared for how good Colorado was. Um, TCU did not have the speed to match the Buffaloes on Saturday. TCU did not have, I don't know, the want to, the motivation. Um, you know, Coach Dyke spoke to that of he felt like the Colorado team just wanted to play football more than TCU did on Saturday, and that it showed on the field. And it's hard to argue with that. The way that TCU defense played, where these are guys, and I said in our group chat, I've never been more wrong about anything than I was about how this defense was going to perform. I thought there was a lot of improvement on the horizon for this defense, and it just fell off a cliff. It was horrendous. And these are guys that we've seen play a lot of football and play a lot of high quality football, and they just got completely outclassed by Colorado. So I think the big thing is TCU, given all of that, TCU with all of the penalties, the terrible turnovers in the worst possible spots. After all that, you're driving at 4 or 5 minutes left in the game to go win the game, go tie the game, and you're not able to get it done. So, I think the sky is not falling on TCU's season, but the miracles that occurred to kind of set everything in place for the dominoes to line up just right last season didn't come to be on Saturday.
Yeah, I think for me, watching Colorado, this is a team that is going to score a lot of points in the Pac-12 this year. I think Shedeur Sanders is legit. He made all of the throws necessary in this game. Travis Hunter is Deion Sanders said Travis Hunter is him. And I have to give Travis Hunter an incredible amount of credit. I mean, to play both ways as a starter and play 110, almost 120 snaps, I think, in this game when it's 100 degrees in Fort Worth. And he was making big time plays on both sides. He made some big catches down the field. He made some big plays in the secondary on the defensive end. I would not be surprised if Travis Hunter winds up in the Heisman conversation later in the season. Of course, it's still super early. It's early September, but Colorado has some really athletic, gifted skill players on the offensive end. I'm not convinced about the defense at all, but Colorado is going to be an entertaining football team to watch this year, and I think they're going to score a lot of points. For TCU, I think what struck me the most, what really upset me the most, was just how undisciplined TCU was in this game. And it was almost shades of some of those 2019, 2020, 2021 Gary Patterson teams where TCU's committing all of these penalties and giving teams free yards and just making silly mistakes. And I mean, TCU coming in as a home team, maybe the hype of coming off a national championship appearance and all of this conversation about Colorado, maybe the players had some jitters. I don't really know, but there were so many silly mistakes in terms of the penalties and the turnovers, and the play calling at times I think was suspect as well. The defense we'll talk about at greater length here in a little bit, but I think in the grand scheme of things, for me, TCU just came out and played shockingly undisciplined football. And I think going into Nicholls State next weekend for week 2, that is the one thing that has to change right away. We'll talk about the offense here in a little bit as well, but that for me, the big takeaway for TCU was just the amount of self-inflicted wounds, and it felt like it was a very winnable ball game. As well as Colorado moved the football, TCU had an opportunity to still win this game, and the Frogs were not able to do that because of a lot of the self-inflicted wounds. So let's start here by talking about the offense, because there are, I think, a lot of positives and a lot of criticisms that I think are valid from this game. And for me, I know there was a lot of criticism levied at some of the play calling, and I think a lot of that is valid. However, I think the penalties, to me, are the biggest issue that TCU had offensively in this game, and the turnovers, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But you can't make 10 penalties for 76 yards against a good football team and expect to win. And when you look at what some of these penalties were, I mean, how many times did TCU get called for a false start in this game? 3, 4, maybe 5 times. And you go from 2nd and 10 to 2nd and 15, or 3rd and 4 to 3rd and 9, 2nd and 2 to 2nd and 7, because you can't stay set playing at your home field. You know, those penalties are just from not being disciplined, not being ready to go. And so I was really discouraged to see that. At the end of the day, you put up 42 points, you put up over 540 yards of total offense, you run for 260 yards. Chandler Morris had a very mixed bag. And Anthony, I know you'll talk here a little bit about Chandler Morris and what you saw from him and some of the play calling, but to me, I was just disappointed with some of the lack of discipline and some of the lack of execution on the offensive end. What did you see from this offense and from Chandler Morris and Kendall Briles and crew?
Yeah, just to speak to the discipline, I mean, I wrote about this a little bit in my quick thoughts on Frogs of War of so much for do your job. I mean, this part of what made last season's team so successful was that discipline, to avoid those penalties, to avoid putting yourself in such negative situations. So to have here in the first game of the season, to have 10 penalties, which matches the most that they had all of last season across 15 games, it's a bad way to start the campaign. So yeah, that certainly set things up in a bad place. And I think that there is plenty of criticism to go around in a lot of ways here. So we're starting with the offense here. That doesn't mean it's 100% the offense's fault or mostly the offense's fault, but this is what we're talking about first. So let's talk about it. And I've seen a lot of the messaging on Twitter from a lot of TCU fans on this has been, well, look at all these yards. You should be able to win a game if you score 42 points. If you have over 500 yards of total offense, you should be able to win that game no matter what. It's the defense's fault. Well, a lot of that is just it's empty yards. If you don't score, great, you got 500 yards, but you reached across the 25 3 times, and on those 3 possessions you didn't get any points. 2 turnovers and a missed field goal. That's you can't win that way. And the missed field goal, okay, we're just going to have to talk about it. I mean, the offensive game plan to attack Travis Hunter in the passing game is what was that actually the plan, or is that just that's where Chandler Morris thought the most open player was? I'm not sure what the thought process is there. But the drive that resulted in the missed field goal is they throw 2 fades to the end zone at Travis Hunter, with Savion Williams, who was a complete ghost in this game. He on the fade to him, I'm not even sure he made an attempt at the ball. And then one to Jalen Robinson, who is maybe the shortest player that TCU has. What you're throwing a jump ball to Jalen Robinson. I can't understand how that is. You have 1st and 10 at the 25-yard line and you get 0 points because you're attempting a 43-yard field goal. Because you threw 2 jump balls at the best, cover corner in college football. How is that the plan? The first interception, I don't have any blame on that except for Chandler Morris was too slow, too late on the pass. The play was there. It was open, and he just missed it. He just was a beat too slow, a beat too late, and the defender made a nice play. So I think that's just, we can talk about whether that's a Chandler Morris problem or that's just, that's the kind of thing that happens. The other interception at the goal line where Travis Hunter makes an incredible play is 3rd and 1 at the 3.
Yep.
And you are running for 9 yards a carry against this Colorado defensive line. You're destroying them up front. And the choice there is to throw a swing to Major Everhart or on mesh or whatever at the best player on the field. What are you doing? How is that the play? At that time, trailing by 3 points in the second half, you have opportunity to go take the lead or at least tie the game with a short field goal. I just, it's flummoxing. And, there's going to be a lot of talk about the offensive coordinator decision and the decision-making of that offensive coordinator. We don't have to get into all of that. I'll just say that is this still the right person? I mean, I think there's plenty of blame to give there. I know that all of the TCU Anons on Twitter will come out and say, look at all these yards. Look at all these points. Okay. Look at the loss column. The offense was not successful enough when it needed to be. Yes, yards, points, great. You got to get the job done on those 3 possessions to waste those. And then the end of the game. I mean, I'm rambling here. You're welcome to cut me off at any time, but we'll go ahead and talk about the end of the game situation here, where the offense, the new clock rules really came into effect here, where you've got like 4 or 5 minutes left in this game, and you've probably got the last possession if you want it. TCU's driving and then gets across midfield and just kind of shuts it down. Runs Trey Sanders into the line of scrimmage twice for no gain. I mean, not even really attempting to get any closer. And then you throw a dump off to Jared Wiley that comes up well short. And you lose and the game's over. Again, it's decision-making from the play callers or from somebody that just didn't get the job done on Saturday.
Yeah, I think the balance seemed to not be there at times in this game. And I feel like TCU over the last few years has been so good at running the ball and averaging a good amount of yards per carry with multiple different running backs. And I feel like there are times where TCU almost just forgets to run the ball, and they need to be reminded that they can run the ball and be effective on the ground. And there were some plays early in the game. The 3rd and 1 play at the 4-yard line is a perfect example of I believe that drive, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe that drive was started off by the 74-yard carry by Amani Bailey, where he makes 2 defenders
You're
miss.
Starting inside the 1, right? You're starting inside the 1, and Amani Bailey bursts that 74-yard run. Yes.
And that's a play where I think if you run the ball there, even if you don't score, you're very likely to pick up the first down and wind up with a 1st and goal situation. Not to mention Trey Sanders, who had 3 touchdowns in this game, was very effective in those short yardage scenarios. He only averaged a little over 3 yards a carry, but he was getting you those first downs in those short yardage situations. So that was one that I know Sonny Dykes said after the game they would have liked to have that back. And in the 4th quarter, end of the game, unfortunately, Amani Bailey was cramping up in a game where Travis Hunter is playing 110, 120 snaps in 100-degree weather. It was unfortunate TCU didn't have him out there at the end of the game, but you're running the ball in a scenario where you need to kind of move the ball quickly there, pick up some yards. And so just the balance throughout the game didn't really seem to be there. Hopefully that gets changed going into Nicholls State, and TCU can find more of a balance between the run and the pass. I think the run definitely needs to be a little bit more of an emphasis. especially if this is what we're going to get from Chandler Morris. And now, let me just say this about Chandler. I know there is a lot of criticism being thrown his way on social media about this is the quarterback who beat Max Duggan for the starting job last year. Like, is this really who he is? I mean, let's just look at this for a second. And I'm not trying to be a Chandler Morris defender or anything, but he's only started a few games in his college career. He still needs to play a lot of meaningful football. And I know he's a fourth year player. He's a redshirt COVID sophomore, third year with the program, but he only played a couple of games in 2021. He only played in a couple of games last year. So this is still his first real run as the starting quarterback. And I think there are going to be some growing pains with Chandler Morris in this offense, especially with so many new players. And for what it's worth, I think the wide receiver group, if we're looking at some positives from the offensive side, I think the wide receivers were billed as who we thought they would be. John Paul Richardson had a really good game. Jared Wiley, tight end, had 6 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown, had a great catch for a touchdown. Dylan Wright had a touchdown grab. Also, Jack Beck got involved. TCU's depth at wide receiver was really shown in this game, and both Amani Bailey and Trey Sanders were effective in their own right. But the 2 red zone turnovers by Chandler Morris were really the killer in this game. And I think some of that you can chalk up to play calling needing to be better, but Chandler Morris also needs to be able to make the right reads and the right throws there, and he can't be turning the ball over in those spots. So, Anthony, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on Chandler Morris and what he gave TCU in this game, and just the reaction that you've seen on social media from Frog fans, and just what you make of just his performance in this game.
Yeah, I think the criticism is coming because it's being compared. This performance from Morris is being compared to a fully cooked version of Max Duggan that made its way to the Heisman Trophy stand, right? And I think that's an unfair comparison, even though they competed for the starting job last year and Morris has been around this team now for a bit, because like you said, he just hasn't had that level of experience. A lot of these throws that he was missing was very reminiscent to Max Duggan throws from a couple years ago, where it's like, man, it's right there and you just missed it. And it was always a we know it's in there somewhere, Max. Let's see it. And last season he finally put that together. And I think that there might be. It's hard to ask for patience after a run to the national championship game, but I think that there needs to be a little bit measure of patience with Chandler Morris because I think he's got it all. I think he's got all the ability in the world to make it happen, and he needs more reps. He needs more of that in-game, real, live experience. Because yeah, I mean, he missed a couple of throws, even I think on that last drive where there were guys open, and it sailed too high or far too wide, and it just wasn't on target. I mean, they didn't hit a single deep ball all day. Longest pass of the day was Dylan Wright's mesh crosser that he took 23 yards for a touchdown. So I think all of that is something that he has to work through. But I can see the better days ahead from Morris, and I don't put all of this on him. Certainly, he missed a couple and he didn't get the job done today, but I don't think it's a throw it all away. I don't see that. I know Frog fans are frustrated, and rightfully so. But yeah, I'm okay with Morris's performance on the whole, and I see that the future is going to be bright for him.
Yeah, and I don't think you can really.
And I do want to say, but yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't think you can really put this on the offense as a whole, because at the end of the day, TCU scored 42 points and put up over 500 yards of offense, and you gave up 45, and you gave up 510 passing yards to Shedeur Sanders. 4 different Colorado receivers went for over 100 yards. And I'll be honest, in high school, collegiate, NFL football, I have never seen 4 different receivers go over 100 yards in a football game before. That is a first for me. And if there's one positive for this TCU defense, they held Colorado to 55 rushing yards. But coming in, we were not really concerned about Colorado's rushing attack all too much. We know that they had Alton McCaskill, but it was, can TCU can they get pressure on Shedeur Sanders? Can they limit this passing attack? And the game plan from Colorado offensively, and you have to give the Buffaloes a lot of credit too. Colorado came out with a clear game plan offensively, and there was not a over reliance on deep balls down the field. It was very much we're going to attack the short yardage areas of the field. We're going to get the ball to our playmakers, our athletic receivers, our athletic running back, and your job is going to be to tackle us. You're going to have to make open field tackles. You're going to have to make tackles at the line of scrimmage. TCU failed miserably in both of those areas. The Frogs ultimately give up over 550 yards of offense, 45 points. This defensive performance was frankly embarrassing for a unit that is returning basically its entire starting secondary from last year. You have Josh Newton back, who's an All-American caliber player. Bud Clark is an all-conference caliber player. Mark Perry, I think, is an all-conference caliber player if he may not get the preseason recognition. You have Johnny Hodges and Jamoy Hodge back. Your stud nose tackle Dominic Williams back. This defense should not be giving up almost 600 yards, especially at home against a team with a lot of players playing in their first FBS games. I mean, I'm awestruck by how bad this defensive outing was, coming off of a national championship performance where you give up 65 points. You also gave up a bunch of points and a bunch of yards against Michigan. Joe Gillespie, it's year 2 of the 3-3-5. These players should be more comfortable in the system. I think there was a lot of talk before the season about how this defense, and we had talked about it as well, the two of us, that this defense was going to be much improved from last year. And there were several games last season where the defense had some struggles, but they made some adjustments in the second half. They were able to get some key stops when they needed to and some key turnovers when they needed to. But Anthony, I was shocked by how bad TCU's defense came out in this game. And what do you even say to summarize this defensive performance, and how does this defense regroup for next week? Because I'm still kind of at a loss for words right now.
Yeah, I'm really concerned that this is the unit that just fully goes into a tailspin. I think getting exposed like this on the national stage, and everybody's going to be talking about it. You won't be able to turn on any college football, anything, ESPN, anywhere. You're going to open Twitter, and all you're going to hear about is how much this offense torched you. So I hope that the TCU coaching staff is able to get these guys' minds right to focus going forward. And I think with Josh Newton, Johnny Hodges, and those guys have all the leadership ability, all the tools to make it happen. And so I do think that they will get it turned around. But it was an abysmal performance on Saturday, just at every level. I think one thing that somehow we underestimated how much losing those superstars was going to really mean. Those longtime starters who have been around the program for forever and at a top level. So, and it's amazing that we underestimated losing the Thorpe Award winner, that would matter. Not having a Travis Hodges Tomlinson, who was a sure tackler, was in the right place at the right time every time, just a 100% reliable player on the field, he was sorely missed. Not having D Winter's speed and playmaking awareness, just sorely missed on Saturday. I mean, the the speed is the thing that really stood out. So I think Colorado is really fast, but TCU defenses in the past, that was the thing that TCU would stand on, is having the fastest guys on the field. It was the speed baby, Gary Patterson quote, and that just, man, that was the slowest defense that I've seen out of TCU in probably ever in my time, since 2006, ever really following the Horned Frogs. So that was, seeing the way that Edwards would just fly past. Oh man, poor Jamoy Hodge. I had such high expectation for Jamoy Hodge going into this game. I thought he was going to ruin Colorado's day. And man, he got blown up on that touchdown run on a block that clip is getting shared everywhere on social media. He got exploded on that block. He was diving at ankles all day. He just couldn't get to the spot to make the play. He did make a few good plays. He chased Shedeur Sanders out on a play that set up the blocked field goal. He made a lot of tackles, but there was just a lot of diving at ankles, a lot of reaching for shoulder pads. That the screen pass that resulted in a touchdown earlier in the game, like, you had like 4 or 5 guys around Edwards, and you got no piece of them. You got no touch on them. Yeah, it's really disappointing. I think that I was completely wrong about this defense. I totally bought into, and you could see it. You could see that, all right, these guys all work really well together. They know what they're doing. They know where to be. But when you strap it up, and I don't know, man, they just got punched in the mouth and they got ran past. And it's like you said, I mean, this is one that TCU fans have been calling for, the Joe Gillespie pushback for a long time, and said pretty much since he came in. I mean, people were pretty much right away, oh, you're gonna have 3 down linemen? That's impossible. And as soon as it's not winning you football games, that drumbeat's going to get really loud.
Yeah, I'm right there with you that I thought this defense was going to come out and be a lot more competitive. And for what it's worth, the defense did have 4 sacks, and TCU's offensive line did not give up a sack in this game. So just a couple little positive nuggets there. But at the end of the day, TCU's front 3, if you're not getting pressure at all from those front 3 guys, and you're having to consistently blitz 1 or 2 linebackers, or a linebacker and a defensive back, I feel like part of the 3-3-5 is that you can create some different kinds of pressure from different angles. But to do that, you need guys on the back end that can cover and win one-on-one matchups. And it just seemed like every single time TCU got a run stop, or there was an incomplete pass on an early down, and Colorado's forced into 2nd and 8 or 3rd down and 6, they move the chains no problem. I mean, Colorado for the game goes 9 for 15 on 3rd downs. They go 2 for 2 on 4th downs. Colorado had no problems moving the football in this game. And that was what frustrated me the most. Was you're thinking that TCU's defense at some point will settle in and get some stops, or you might have some adjustments in the second half. Colorado stuck to its game plan from the start of the first quarter to the end of the fourth quarter, and it was highly successful throughout the entire game. And TCU could not get any big stops in the secondary or big plays in the secondary at all in this game. So that's got to change going into this next game coming up against Nicholls State. This secondary needs to step up and start winning those one-on-one matchups and covering better, so that these guys up front can start to get a little bit of pressure. So looking at some other little highlights here from the special team standpoint, TCU did have some big plays. Major Everhart, I think, is going to be a player to watch as the season goes on. He had the great kick return, almost bringing it to the end zone, gets tackled at around the 10-yard line. Nnamdi Obiazor blocks the field goal, but looking at this game, I guess one last time, Anthony, what needs to change going into Nicholls State? What do you need to see differently from what you saw over the weekend to get this football team back on the right track?
I mean, there's got to be some. I don't know if it's some pride, some motivation, some just that will to go and do it. I mean, I don't know that you can all of a sudden learn how to tackle in a week or in throughout the course of a season. I think these guys know how to tackle. I think they just did not execute that. I think that's where it's it's a physical game, and um, they've got to be able to go and execute on defense. That's where. Sorry, I just saw a DM come through our. I should be paying attention here. Apologies. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that has to change is the tackling. I mean, you have to be in the right spot. You have to be able to get to the right spot. I think TCU did a terrible job of that. TCU had huge lapses in the secondary that I think Bud Clark, Miller Bradford just losing guys out there. Jimmy Horn's just standing around waiting in the end zone for somebody to throw him the ball. That obviously it just can't happen. So that's the thing that needs to go forward. I think that you also have to just do what is working. TCU allowed 0 tackles for loss on this game on the offensive side. Colorado defense earned 0 tackles for loss, 0 sacks. The offensive line did a good job. I think some of that also is Chandler Morris did a pretty good job of getting rid of the ball when there was pressure. He had a few where that Colorado had an opportunity for sacks and he tossed it away. I think that's something where a lot of those last season end up as sacks, and Max Duggan would take those as sacks. But look, when you are dominating up front like that, they're getting no kind of push on your offensive line. Go and push them around. Go take those 4 yards of play, 6 yards of play, and especially when you're in down and distance and game situation to take it. I guess as a final takeaway, I think that going into this game, we knew that there was a set of things that could happen that TCU loses this game. And it was, poor discipline, bad turnovers, and Colorado superstars pulling off heroics and making big explosive plays. And that's exactly what happened. All of those things came through and Colorado walked away with the win. And it's not a fluke of a win. It is a win that Colorado absolutely went out and beat TCU. So the Frogs just have to regroup and hopefully have a get-right game against Nicholls State before the Big 12 opener in Houston, where that Houston team, I think that can already be a scary game. I mean, they're going to be very excited to go have their first Big 12 contest. It's probably going to be a really exciting atmosphere there. So things really need to get fixed, and they have to get fixed fast.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see some of the quotes that came out after the game from Chandler Morris and from Josh Newton, where they said that Colorado just seemed more excited to play this game. And I know Sonny Dykes had made some comments earlier in the week prior to this game that TCU wanted to come out with a chip on its shoulder and show that last season was not a fluke. And all the folks that said TCU had everything go their way, they had all that good fortune to get to the national title game, we're coming back in 2023 to show that we're the real deal and that wasn't a fluke. Colorado came out and really played like they wanted to make a statement as 3 touchdown underdogs coming in. You listen to some of the comments from Deion Sanders and the players after the game. Colorado wanted this game bad, and it just didn't seem like TCU matched that energy. So that's something that I really think is on the coaching staff, and that needs to change moving forward. These players need to come out, and this is a brand new season. As great as last season was, 13-2, winning the Fiesta Bowl, going to the national championship, that's 2022. This is 2023. This is a brand new season. Every team is coming in 0-0 on the season, and you got to win every week, 1 week at a time. And it was pretty clear that Colorado really wanted this win and wanted to make the statement and played with great energy. And unfortunately, TCU just didn't match that. So hopefully that changes going into Nicholls State. Anthony, do you have any other final thoughts from this game before we transition out of here?
I'll just say, losing a game does not mean everything is a failure. It does not mean it's time to fire the entire coaching staff. It does not mean that Jeremiah Donati should have hired Deion Sanders instead of Sonny Dykes. Come on, people. TCU just, like you said, went to the college football playoff and won a college football playoff game. Does that happen under Deion Sanders? Maybe, but let's get back to reality a little bit of TCU lost one game by 3 points when it was just not the best team on the field. Last season, TCU won games by 3 points or less when it didn't perform as the best team on the field. So, the margins are very thin for TCU, and they will always be very thin. You are always going to be sitting on that knife's edge of an incredible season or a terrible season. And, sometimes it'll fall in between those two. But this time, the coin just fell on the wrong side for the Frogs. And I don't think it needs to be some program-changing, dramatic situation here. I am right there with everyone on the frustration for losing this game. TCU had every opportunity to have won this game and should have won this game and didn't because it was not as well prepared, not as well coached in game, and not as well executed in game. But TCU still has every bit of opportunity in front of it. I mean, again, Kansas State won the Big 12 last season, having lost a non-conference game. For the most part, all of TCU's goals for the season are still ahead of it. It will be a challenge, but I think TCU will be up for the challenge. So, yeah, that's my final word on this one, and excited to see still what's ahead for this team.
Yeah, there's still so much football to play, and TCU starting the season 0-1. The Frogs did not lose to Wyoming. They did not lose to Texas State. So that is a little bit of a positive.
It could be worse, folks.
It could be worse. So we will have some more thoughts about the upcoming game against Nicholls State. That'll be this coming Saturday at Amon G. Carter Stadium, the FCS matchup. We will be recording another episode during the midweek. We will have some more thoughts about how the Frogs match up there with the Colonels, and we will have some additional thoughts later in the week as well about some of the major college sports news that broke this past week in terms of conference realignment, some of which involves the SMU Mustangs. So we will have a variety of things to discuss there. We do have a couple of other TCU sports things to hit on here before we wrap up on this Sunday evening Labor Day weekend podcast. TCU soccer had a couple of matches at home this week, a Thursday match against UAB and a match that is still ongoing right now against Texas A&M. A bit of a rough start for the soccer team. Goals have been tough to come by TCU went into the matchup against UAB Thursday with only 1 goal in 3 matches, and that unfortunately did not change Thursday. A 0-0 draw against UAB, a very winnable match where TCU seemed to dominate the shot total, the shots on goal, but just could not seem to find that finish to get the deciding goal to win that match. And then the A&M contest is still ongoing. So Anthony, as our resident soccer fan, what are you seeing from this team right now, and what's been the biggest reason why there just haven't been too many finishes from this group so far?
Yeah, there's a mix of bad luck, and it's just a lack of finishing right now. I mean, we're going on 400 plus minutes straight of no scoring for TCU soccer, and that's just kind of unheard of. TCU has too much talent on this team to continue this scoreless streak. Um, as we record, there's still a few minutes left in the A&M game. Maybe they find a winner here in the final minutes, but it's a little bit discouraging. But it's the kind of thing of, you lose a generational, long time talent like Messiah Bright off of this squad, and you're going to have some things set back. And she's been incredible at the professional level, and TCU continues to struggle without her on the field.
And I guess from a positive standpoint, the defense has been playing very well, and Lauren Kellett, the goalkeeper, has had
And
multiple.
Lauren Collette, yeah, oh yeah, she's been terrific. And here in this Texas A&M game, she's made some just ridiculous saves already in this one. So, as TCU is not scoring, they're also not giving up many goals here. So yeah, she's been really excellent and up to her expectations. So hopefully that continues and TCU finds some offense going forward.
Elsewhere in TCU women's sports, the volleyball team traveled to the East Coast for the Coastal Carolina tournament. Matches on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. TCU goes 2-1 over these 3 matches. I was following along here a little bit. TCU picked up a 3-0 sweep over the Georgia Bulldogs on Friday, a 3-1 win over North Florida, the Ospreys, on Saturday. Some really good individual performances here. Riley Buckley, the transfer from Missouri, the new starting setter that's taken over for Callie Williams. She's been magnificent to start the season for TCU. She had a really great performance in the Big 10, Big 12 Challenge. She had 47 assists in the Thursday match against Coastal Carolina, which was a 3-1 loss where TCU unfortunately had quite a few self-inflicted errors in this match. There were 18 service errors alone, which is basically 18 free points for the other team. So in a 4-set match, when you have that many service mistakes, it's going to be really tough to beat anybody. But a couple of double-doubles in that game. Jalen Gibson, outside hitter, had 20 kills and 11 digs. Melanie Parra, the transfer from Texas, had 19 kills and 10 digs. And again, Riley Buckley had 47 assists, which is only 5 off of her career high. So Audrey Knowles, the all Big 12 preseason honoree, she did not play at the Big 10, Big 12 Challenge, but she did play this weekend, so that's a big boost for TCU to get her back. She's a really talented hitter, one of the best hitters in the Big 12. So TCU now 2-3 on the season. The volleyball team will travel once again next weekend to Texas A&M for another tournament with 4 schools. They will play Northern Iowa, Utah State, and Texas A&M. So a couple of winnable matches there for the Volley Frogs as they continue non-conference play. That will pretty much wrap it up for this evening. Thank you all for joining us.
I have to stop you before you close. Okay. As you were talking, TCU just scored. Scoreless streak is over. TCU soccer has scored. Yes. So 3 minutes left still in this one, but yeah, looks like maybe 7 Castaigne just knocked one in. So very exciting to see.
And a big win too against an A&M program that is pretty solid. And this is a TCU soccer team that came in as a top 10 ranked team in the country. High expectations, some really difficult contests early in the season. Penn State, a ranked team, Florida State, a ranked team as well. So really happy to see that from the soccer team. Really hope that the Frogs can get going there. But we will go ahead and sign off on that positive note. A couple plugs here. Like we brought up in the intro, Charlie Hustle. We are partnered with Charlie Hustle. Get your TCU swag, get your Big 12 conference swag. Use the promo code TEN1215, TEN1215 for 15% off all non-sale items, or use the promo code FrogsOWar for 15% off all TCU apparel, like I got on right now. Also, Prize Picks, if you're interested in playing daily fantasy sports, go to prizepicks.com. Use the promo code FROGS12 for a 100% deposit match up to $100. And one last time, if you would like to support the two of us here on Frogs Up or the 1012 Network, all of the podcasts that are involved, please consider donating to the Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/TEN12 Network. We are going to do a midweek episode later this week. We will talk about the Nicholls State game and, again, bringing up the conference realignment news. So stay tuned to us here on Frogs Up and continue to support us online at Frogs of War. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Also go online at www.frogsowar.com. Anthony, any final notes here before we sign off tonight?
That's all I've got. Oh, Prize Picks. You got to play. I made the worst Prize Picks decision ever, taking the less on Shedeur Sanders passing yards, and he more than doubled it. But made some other good choices out there. So make good choices, but get your Prize Picks Frogs 12 in, and yeah, that's all. Go Frogs.
All
Get
right,
your Frogs up.
Frogs up.